That's not an insult. That's a 2,500-year-old Buddhist teaching, and neither of them knows what they just said. Buddhism in pop culture is back. It's been over a year. Yoda, Blade Runner, and you've been asking for this one. The Matrix. The Wachowskis confirmed they built this film on Buddhism, studied it for years. This wasn't accidental. And there's a pattern running through the entire trilogy that almost nobody sees. Quick heads up, spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen it, go watch. I'll wait. And the ending? That's where the Buddhism really shows up. We're mainly breaking down 1999, but pulling from the sequels when they go even deeper. Because once you see this pattern, every scene changes. Neo's journey, Agent Smith's fear, those 2 pills, the final fight, all of it clicks differently. Time to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. So let's start with what the film nails. The Matrix is one of the best mainstream depictions of illusion-like appearance and ignorance you'll ever see. In Buddhism, this is called Avidyā, not seeing things as they actually are, and the Matrix captures it perfectly. Listen to what Morpheus says.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
That's straight up Buddhist philosophy. The teaching is that what we perceive as solid reality is actually constructed. Your mind tags raw experience with a label. Then you live inside the label. The Buddha taught this 2,500 years ago. We're trapped in saṃsāra, not because the world is fake, but because we fundamentally misread what we're experiencing. We think things are permanent when they're changing. We think we're separate when we're interconnected. We cling to an identity that's constantly dissolving. And yeah, Plato told a version of this too. The cave, the shadows, the sun. Same pattern, different language. The Wachowskis pulled from both, East and West, in one film. Morpheus asks a perfect question.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
He's pointing to the fact that everything we experience gets filtered through perception, and that perception is conditioned. And then we get this kid, literally dressed as a Buddhist monk, who drops a koan on Neo. Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. There is no spoon. Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself. Dude, that's shunyata, emptiness teaching. The spoon isn't nothing. The spoon exists. But the spoon as a separate, permanent, independent object, that's the illusion. The spoon is empty of inherent existence, arising from causes and conditions, inseparable from everything else. Think about your phone. You think it's solid, permanent, real. It feels solid, but it's a temporary pattern. In 50 years, it's dust. The phone is empty of inherent existence, just like the spoon. So when you change your relationship to the spoon, when you see its empty nature, you're not destroying reality. You're seeing it clearly for the first time. Neo starts to see the code. The rules he thought were absolute aren't. And when you see through the construction, you can move differently within it. That's what awakening looks like in practice, not the stunts, the shift in perception. So far, the Matrix is nailing Buddhist philosophy. But here's where Neo screws it up. Because what Neo experiences after taking the red pill isn't enlightenment. It's right view, the first step of the Noble Eightfold Path. What Neo gets after the red pill isn't enlightenment. It's the start of the path. Watch what actually happens. Morpheus offers the choice. Red pill, you see the truth. Blue pill, you stay comfortable. Neo takes the red pill. He wakes up naked, in a pod, covered in bioports, surrounded by millions of other humans being harvested for energy. The sky is scorched. The earth is destroyed. Humanity is enslaved. Then they start training. Neo downloads Kung Fu directly into his brain. Knowing isn't understanding. You can download every Buddhist text into your brain, but that won't make you enlightened.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Okay. Compare this to the Buddha's awakening. When Siddhartha sat under the Bodhi tree and achieved enlightenment, he didn't wake up to find everything worse. He woke up to clarity. He saw suffering, yes, but he also saw the path out. He saw interconnection. He saw the possibility of liberation. Neo wakes up to a nightmare. And Buddhism doesn't frame awakening as trading comfortable illusion for miserable reality. That's not liberation. That's a different trap. Then, Neo becomes the one. The oracle tells him he's special. Morpheus believes he's the prophesied savior. His entire identity wraps around being chosen, different, destined. Here's the trap. Buddhism teaches the opposite. Enlightenment is the dissolution of the special self, realizing you are not separate, not chosen, not the hero of a cosmic story. The Buddha said everyone has Buddha nature. There's no one. There's no special person who saves everyone else. But Neo gets superpowers. He becomes the main character. He gets to be important. Neo didn't choose ego on purpose. The story chose it for him. Prophecy is a powerful drug. But still, he traded one ego for a bigger ego. And Keanu knew better. Remember, Keanu had already done this. He'd studied with Tibetan teachers. He knew what real awakening looked like. In Little Buddha, when Siddhartha faces Mara's demons, he doesn't fight. He doesn't dodge arrows. He sits. He breathes. He stays still. The demons can't touch him because he's not resisting. Neo fights. Neo becomes the action hero. Neo can't stop moving. And that's the difference. The film celebrates Neo gaining power. Morpheus says he's beginning to believe like it's a good thing. And for Hollywood, it is. We want the hero to win. But Buddhist awakening isn't about belief or power. It's about seeing through both. And actually, Morpheus gets this part right. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. That's experiential practice. You can't believe your way to awakening. You have to experience it directly. But Neo's journey, that's not where it goes. Now let's talk about Agent Smith. The villain, right? Wrong. He's the most Buddhist character in the film. And I know that sounds wild, because Smith is trying to kill everyone. But from a Buddhist perspective, Smith isn't evil. He's terrified. Watch this scene. Smith has Morpheus helpless. He's implanted a tracker. And now, he reveals what he actually thinks about humanity.
I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply, and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague.
That's hatred, pure hatred. But why does Smith hate humans so much? Because humans represent everything he fears. Change, unpredictability, chaos, death. Humans don't follow the rules. They break the system. They evolve and adapt and refuse to stay controlled. And for a program designed to maintain order, that's terrifying on a deep level. In Buddhist terms, Smith is ego. He's the self-preservation instinct resisting impermanence at all costs. Think about it. What does ego do when threatened? It multiplies defenses. It becomes more rigid. It clings harder to control. In the sequels. And yeah, we're going there because Smith becomes the ideal metaphor for ego. Watch what happens. Smith replicates himself endlessly. He infects other programs. He becomes Legion.
Yes, me. Me.
Infinite copies of the same identity, desperately trying to preserve itself. That's ego. It multiplies. It reinforces itself. It builds walls to avoid the terrifying truth of emptiness. Smith is that friend who panics when you evolve. You know the type. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from clinging. We cling to permanence in an impermanent world. We cling to self when there is no inherent self. We cling to control when everything is beyond control. And that clinging creates the sense of being separate, threatened, constantly defending against dissolution. Smith embodies that perfectly. And here's the brilliant part most people miss.
You're empty. So are you.
Smith accidentally speaks Dharma. He's right. They're both empty of inherent existence, both arising from causes and conditions, both part of the same system. But Smith hates that truth. Neo hasn't understood it yet. Watch the final battle in the third film. Smith is trying to eliminate Neo, to destroy the anomaly, to restore perfect control. But fighting makes Smith stronger. Every time Neo resists, Smith multiplies. Because you can't defeat ego by fighting it. Fighting ego is ego. That's how it survives. So what does Neo do? He surrenders. He stops fighting. He allows Smith to take him over completely. And in that moment, Smith dies. That's Buddhist practice. The ego can't survive non-resistance. It needs opposition to define itself. When there's no more resistance, when there's no more self to defend, it dissolves. The Buddha didn't defeat Mara by fighting. He touched the earth and said, "I see you." He acknowledged the fear, the grasping, and remained still. Mara disappeared. Neo does the same. He sees Smith, acknowledges him, stops resisting. Smith disappears. Neo dies too. And in Buddhism, enlightenment doesn't mean death of personality. What dies in awakening isn't the person. It's the belief that the person is separate. But still, The Matrix gets closer to the truth here than most Hollywood films. Smith isn't the villain, he's the shadow. The part of us terrified of letting go, and the only way past him is through him. Not by fighting, by surrendering. All right, here's the big one. Morpheus thinks he's offering truth versus illusion. He's not. He's offering suffering A versus suffering B. And a Buddhist teacher would have said, wrong question. Let's break down what each pill actually represents. Blue pill, stay in the matrix. Keep your comfort. Never question reality. Avoid suffering by avoiding awareness. That's indulgence, sensory pleasure. Ignorance is strategy. In Buddhist terms, that's one extreme. The Buddha tried this as a prince, surrounded by luxury, protected from anything painful. His father built him paradise where he never had to face sickness, old age, or death. And what did the Buddha discover? Comfort doesn't equal freedom. Avoiding suffering doesn't make you free. It makes you trapped. Red pill. Leave the matrix. Embrace harsh truth. Give up all comfort. Live in Zion eating slop, wearing rags, fighting an endless war. Face reality head-on no matter how brutal. That's asceticism. Rejecting pleasure entirely. Seeking truth through self-denial and hardship. The Buddha tried this too. After leaving the palace, he fasted until he was skin and bones, meditated until he collapsed, pushed his body to the edge, trying to achieve enlightenment through suffering. And what did he discover? Suffering doesn't equal freedom either. Denying the body doesn't liberate the mind. So he found something else, something too quiet for Hollywood. The middle way. And this is where Cypher comes in.
You know, I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
Cypher chose the red pill. He saw the truth, and he hated it. The real world is cold, dark, miserable. The food tastes terrible. There's no pleasure, no comfort, no joy. So he wants the illusion back. At least the illusion felt good. And here's the thing. Buddhism would say Cypher has a point. Not about betraying his friends, but about the problem he identified. Trading comfortable illusion for miserable reality isn't liberation. But here's what Cypher misses. He didn't betray them because he loved steak. He betrayed them because he couldn't live inside a story where truth felt like punishment. Morpheus tells Neo to free your mind. Sounds Buddhist, right? But what Morpheus actually means is manipulate the matrix, bend the rules, use the system against itself. That's not freedom, that's power. Real freedom. Buddhist freedom isn't about bending spoons or dodging bullets. You don't need to prove anything, control anything, or escape anything. The Buddha could have developed supernatural powers. The texts describe him with psychic abilities, flying, reading minds, remembering past lives. But those weren't the point. Those weren't freedom. Freedom was sitting under a tree, breathing and no longer needing reality to be different. So what would the middle way look like in the Matrix? The middle way isn't a third option. It's realizing the options were part of the hypnosis. Buddhism doesn't frame awakening as swapping worlds. It frames it as seeing through grasping, right where you are. Blue pill. Never question. Stay numb. Red pill. Reject everything. Escape. Middle way. See clearly. And choose consciously how to engage. Not escaping life. Living it awake. And that's exactly what Trinity shows us. Trinity functions like a bodhisattva, and that changes everything. Trinity is this mysterious figure, highly skilled, dangerous. She exists between worlds. She can navigate both matrix and reality. She's awake, but she hasn't abandoned humanity. In Buddhism, that's the Bodhisattva path. A Bodhisattva achieves enlightenment, but instead of disappearing into nirvana, they vow to stay in saṃsāra. They return to the world of suffering, again and again, to help others wake up. That's compassion in action. Trinity reaches out to Neo. She guides him. She risks her life, multiple times, to help him see. Not because she has to, because she cares. And watch her throughout the film. She's not passive. She fights alongside Neo. She makes her own choices. She's powerful in her own right. But her power isn't about ego, it's about service. The Oracle told her something years earlier, something that changed her path. The Oracle tells Neo that being the One is like being in love. You know it. Bones know it. And she'd told Trinity that Trinity would fall in love with the One. So when Neo dies, when Smith kills him, when it's over, Trinity refuses to accept it.
I'm not afraid anymore. The Oracle told me that I would fall in love and that the man that I loved would be the one. So you see, you can't be dead. You can't be. Because I love you.
She kisses him. He comes back. Now, this is Hollywood. This is dramatic. But underneath the drama, there's Buddhist truth. Enlightenment without compassion isn't enlightenment. Awakening without love isn't awakening. You could see through everything, have all the powers, transcend all the limits. But if you don't return to help others, you've missed the entire point. Trinity brings Neo back, not with logic, not with technique, not with power. With love, with connection, with the refusal to abandon someone in suffering. That's the Bodhisattva vow. The Buddha didn't achieve enlightenment and disappear. He spent 45 years walking through India, teaching, helping people wake up. Because awakening isn't about escape, it's about return. You climb the mountain, you see clearly, and then you come back down. You bring the truth back with you. You share it. You live it. Trinity represents that return. She's not trying to escape the matrix forever. She goes back in, over and over, risking everything, because there are still people trapped inside who need help, and she does it out of love. Neo has power. Morpheus has faith. But Trinity has compassion. And without compassion, power is dangerous. Faith is blind. Enlightenment is incomplete. So we've deconstructed the film. We've looked at what it gets right, what it gets wrong. But here's the real question. What does this mean for you? Because we are living in a matrix. Not a literal computer simulation, but a constructed reality that shapes how we see ourselves in the world. Right now, you're plugged into systems. Social media algorithms decide what you see. News outlets shape what you think about. Corporate marketing tells you what you want. Cultural narratives define who you should be. You wake up, check your phone, consume content designed to hook you, work a job that labels your identity, buy things to signal status, scroll through highlight reels until you sleep. That's your matrix. And here's the thing, you know it's constructed. You know Instagram isn't real life. You know the news is biased. You know advertising manipulates you. You know all this, but you're still plugged in. Why? Because unplugging is hard. Seeing clearly is uncomfortable. Living differently is isolating. The blue pill is so tempting. And this is where Buddhism offers something way more practical than the Matrix does. The film says, take the red pill and escape. Unplug completely. Reject the comfortable illusion. Embrace harsh truth. Buddhism would say, that world is closer than you think. Don't stay asleep, but don't run away either. Develop awareness, right where you are. Remember Spoon Boy? There is no spoon. The problem isn't the spoon. The problem isn't Instagram or your job or the news or consumer culture. The phone isn't the demon. Unconsciousness is. The trap isn't the thing itself. The trap is how you relate to it. Are you mindlessly scrolling or choosing to engage? Are algorithms deciding your reality, or are you aware of the game? Are you defining yourself by external validation, or do you know who you are without it? The middle way doesn't mean deleting everything and moving to a monastery. It means being awake while you're here, seeing the construction, and choosing how to participate. Practical example. You can scroll social media for 3 hours, feeling worse about yourself, comparing your life to everyone else's, getting angry at posts, completely absorbed in the matrix. Or you can scroll for 20 minutes, notice when it's making you feel bad, put the phone down, and do something real. Same app, same content, different relationship. That's the difference. Blue pill, never question it, stay numb. Red pill, reject it completely, delete everything. Middle way, see it clearly. Choose consciously. And this applies to everything. Your job isn't who you are, but you can still do good work. Money isn't happiness, but you can still pay your bills. The Buddha lived in the world. He walked through villages, he accepted food, he wore robes, he engaged with society, but he wasn't trapped by it. He saw clearly, and that clarity gave him freedom. So what's your matrix? Maybe it's the belief you need more money to be happy. Maybe it's the story you're not good enough. Whatever it is, Buddhism says don't fight it, don't escape it, don't judge yourself. See it. Breathe. Choose how to move forward. Neo's final speech is beautiful. He's going to show people a world without rules, without controls, without boundaries, a world where anything is possible. The door is already here. The boundaries were never real. The rules were constructed. The limitations were agreed upon. You don't need superpowers to be free. You need awareness. And that's available right now. So, The Matrix. Probably the most Buddhist blockbuster ever made. Created by directors who studied Buddhism and quantum physics for years. Starring an actor who'd already played the Buddha, who understood what awakening actually meant. And it gets so much right. The illusion-like nature of reality, the constructed identity, the trap of clinging, the need for experiential practice, the dissolution through surrender, the return through compassion, all brilliant. But it also gets something fundamentally wrong. It gives us 2 choices, blue pill or red pill, comfortable illusion or harsh reality, stay asleep or wake up to suffering. And the Dharma would say, you're asking the wrong question. Because liberation isn't about escaping the world. It's about transforming your relationship to it. It's not about rejecting pleasure or embracing pain. It's about seeing both clearly and not being controlled by either. It's not about becoming the one. It's about realizing there never was a separate self to begin with. Keanu understood this playing Siddhartha. About 90 days learning that awakening isn't dramatic, not about flying or bending reality. It's about sitting still, breathing, seeing what's always been here. Then he played Neo, fought agents, dodged bullets, became the action hero who saves humanity. Buddha found peace. Neo found superpowers. One's free, one's powerful. One sat still, the other couldn't stop moving. So which is enlightenment? The Matrix gives you spectacle. Buddhism gives you silence. The Matrix gives you a hero's journey. Buddhism gives you nowhere to go. The Matrix gives you escape. Buddhism gives you this, right here, right now. And maybe that's why The Matrix is a great movie but not a perfect Buddhist teaching. Hollywood needs drama. It needs heroes and villains and impossible choices and last-minute rescues. Buddhism offers something quieter, but more radical. The cage was made of belief. And the freedom you're looking for, not out there, not in some other reality, not after you've achieved something or escaped something or become someone different. Awakening is available now, the moment you stop clinging. So, wake up, not by taking a pill, not by unplugging from the world, not by becoming special or powerful or enlightened. Wake up by seeing clearly, right here, right now. The red pill shows you the cage. The middle way shows you the cage was never as solid as you thought. And that is the pill nobody talks about. The one that was always available. The one you never needed to take. Because you were never trapped. All right. If this changed how you see the Matrix, or maybe your own life, drop a comment. Tell me, are you team red pill, team blue pill, or walking the middle way? And if you want more Buddhist wisdom breaking down modern culture, we've got Yoda and the Force, Jung versus Buddha, Nietzsche and the Dharma. Even the Monkey Kings battle with Buddha himself. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Next up, we might tackle Plato's cave directly, or dive into another pop culture icon. Maybe Inception? Let me know what you want to see. See you in the next one. Stay awake.